is more agitated so far. The government will have to continue the dialogue. We'll pass him the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, members of this House. Well, we on the Edinburgh team would like to present ourselves as the unity party in this round. We believe that we represent a union of all of the different branches of this tournament. I, an American, am debating with an Irishman from Scotland. And what we find is that I've learned from all these different things. In fact, I've learned that I should stay at the pub until 4 in the morning, the night before the World Championship final, from my drinking samurai of Glasgow. But I also have the American in me, which says, this little voice keeps going, can I buy that with Visa? On the case, we have seen today an extremely well-defined motion from the first team on the Oxford side. They have told us about the importance of stability and consistency in terms of a foreign policy, and the inability to impose moral standards on other nations. And what we, on the Edinburgh side, would like to do today is to extend this case by focusing on the issue of constructive engagement. We want to focus on the issue of the methods being proposed by the members opposite, of them being a blunt instrument, an instrument which is ineffective and ends up bloodying the nation that they are trying to help. We want to introduce 2 major new lines of analysis which will respond to the points that have been made. The first point is that of the evolution of democracy. That democracy is not a powdered substance that you can buy and add water. Boom, democracy. It takes time, and in order to do it over time, you need economic development, and you need to have trade in order to do that. Secondly, we want to talk about the dangers, thank you, no sir, the dangers of excluding a government and how a dictator will tighten his or her, I can't really think of any female dictators out there right now, Margaret Thatcher's long since gone. The tightening and the squeeze and how this will harm the citizenry of that nation. But first, I want to deal with some of the points that have come forward. The first issue that was discussed was the idea of how it works and how this is an effective way to deal with the problem. And what we would say is that it doesn't work because the elites in these various nations still retain all the wealth, and they live on just fine. They retain all the wealth in order to buy weapons, they return all the wealth in order to buy new electric shock treatment, and they buy all the weapons in order to keep their power just as it was before. On the end, sir.
Well then, if they retain all the wealth now, why would they not retain all the extra wealth when you start trading with them and make them that much richer? Are you not yourself enriching dictators?
Absolutely not, sir. Absolutely not, sir. That's outrageous, because what we are suggesting is that you will be able to evolve that economy as a whole, that you will be able to build the sort of small business, this middle of small traders and the middle class and the lower classes, which will grow up into a full democratic polity. Now, no thank you, sir. I also want to deal with this issue of democracy, and that we heard from the first speaker. He actually used this word, the charity of the first world by cutting off food to children. The charity of cutting off trade with Cuba, because the people within the United States, apparently according to the first opposition, feel that they are being charitable by somehow trying to help these people by denying them the basic needs of life. Thank you, no, sir. And this is absolutely outrageous. In fact, what we find is that it's not a democratic process that's fair. It's one where the friends of the West get helped. The friends of the West get helped, and the not friends of the West get hurt. We've heard the example of South Africa knocked back and forth in this debate, and we are not about to get up here and start trading examples back and forth. For every South Africa, there is an Israel. For every Nigeria or whatever have you, there is a counterexample. We want to give you some consistent philosophy which will show you exactly why our side is stronger. And Israel, sir, abuses human rights horrendously, but because they are friends, they get preferential treatment. Can you answer me that, why they get that preferential treatment, sir?
Well, I want to ask you why you think it's charitable when an oppressed minority in another country looks to the West for some constructive help, and you say we'll do absolutely nothing but trade with the government oppressing you.
What we find, actually, on this very point, I've addressed this in principle generally, that about a dictator tightening his squeeze on its people, so that if you actually cut off trade, the very ethnic minorities you're talking about get hurt more in order to maintain power. I will come to that in a moment. But now I want to focus on this notion of the evolution of democracy and how it takes time to do. The Edinburgh Aside today is showing here how democracy takes time, and that you need to have the constructive engagement. They brought forward the example of China. And in China, there is a worldwide consensus that people are willing to trade with them. Thank you, no, sir. The United States had just agreed to trade with them, and the leader of China came across to the United States and maintained relations and got further involved with the United States. That can only help, thank you, no, sir. That can only help them to reach towards democracy. Indeed, if they're going to reach towards democracy and if they're going to improve their economies, they have to allow a freer flow of information. In a modern society, you need to know how a corporation is doing. You need to know how much something is worth. Thank you, no, sir. And if you're restricting information, you are not able to allow the basis and the foundation. Now, finally, this issue of tightening and the squeeze. Here we have a situation where Saddam Hussein, when he is isolated, has to be that much meaner to his people in order to hold them in line. He has to go and beat and hurt people in order to keep them from revolting. So by excluding that government and tightening it in, you actually isolate them and give this dictator more power. If you are trading with them, they are influenced by that trade. If you are trading with them, they have to follow your lead to a certain degree. If you say, go sit in the back and think about what you've done, they just do it more because they're going to benefit by keeping their people down. So we have shown you on this side how, on the first case, you improve the lot of the people by trading. The evolutionary process of democracy and economic stability. On the other hand, we have shown how you harm the rights of the people by squeezing and making that dictator squeeze people that much more. We beg to propose.